The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
We'll call the regular council meeting of June 14th to order. First of all, under presentations, we have none this evening. Could we have a motion, please, to adopt the agenda as presented? Thank you. Councillor Broga, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, could we have a motion, please, to accept the minutes of the council meeting held May 31st, 2021? Councillor Frank. Seconded by Councillor Walliser. Any further questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have the GFL CART report for April and May. Do we have a motion to accept those 2 months, please? Councillor Ford, seconded by Councillor Cernick. Any questions on that? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have from the Estevan Bruins, who are here tonight, the proposal for a new score clock. Take it away, gentlemen.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor Ludwig and councillors, for having us here tonight and giving us a couple minutes to just give you a quick overview of our proposal for the new score clock at Affinity Place. With me, we have, well, first of all, most of you know who I am, Corey Prokop. I'm the co-chair of the Centennial Cup host committee, along with Greg Hofford, who's in behind me here. Is the other co-chair, Danny Ewan from the Estevan Bruins, and Jason Tatarnik from the Bruins as well, head coach and general manager. And then we have Melissa Dietz with Lemon Wedge. She does quite a bit of work with us as a team, and will be doing some work for us as the planning continues for this event. Obviously, the 2022 Centennial Cup has been announced now that we are in fact hosting it for sure in May of 2022. So the 20th to the 29th are the dates that we're set to host the tournament. You know, a big thank you to the city for the support that you've already shown our group in putting that bid together. I know Mayor Ludwig, you were along with us to Calgary to meet with Hockey Canada. It seems like an eternity ago that we were there. Made our presentation, and one of the big factors in us getting this event was the backing of the city and the support that the city provided us. So thank you for that, first of all. As part of that bid, we were asked to come up with a legacy project for our community. Hockey Canada, that was one of the requirements. So, you know, a few different things have been tossed around in the last year or two as potential ideas. One of the examples of something like this from the Western Canada Cup, we see in front of Affinity Place every day, that big digital sign that's out there. That was the legacy project that we left from the Western Canada Cup tournament in 2016, along with paying off the remaining debt of the Bruins at the time. So, based on the financials and the requirement to put this legacy forward to Hockey Canada, we are proposing the new score clock for Affinity Place. The technology in the building today, you know, we still have a state-of-the-art building, a beautiful building. There's no doubt about that. Probably one of the nicest nicest one in our league, and probably one of the top 2 or 3 in the country as far as a junior A arena is concerned. But you know how technology goes in today's day and age. You buy it and a couple of years later it's obsolete, and that's kind of where we're getting with this clock in the building. You know, it's a decade old already, just beyond a decade old, and the technology is likely going to be obsolete in the next couple of years. Try to stay state of the art and keep that building a facility that we're very proud of moving forward and continue to attract some of these big events like the Centennial Cup, some of the big curling events. Maybe we've talked bull riding, PBR, that kind of thing in Affinity Place moving forward. There are all kinds of opportunities that a clock like this would provide, I think, moving forward. And Humboldt has something similar to this. If you've been to the Agrodome or the Brandt Center in Regina and seen the clock there, it's very nice for a WHL arena, and this would be comparable. The nice thing about this, the event itself should bring $2 to $3 million of revenue to the city from an economic development standpoint. The final games on TSN, it'd be great to showcase a nice big clock like this on TV nationally. And the revenues that we're looking at bringing in from the tournament, based on the financials we have today, we're looking at, before the legacy project, probably somewhere in that $300,000 to $500,000 range at the end of the day. Our focus right now is going to be going out to the community and selling tickets for the event, and we want to make sure that it's relatively affordable for people to attend, go to the business community, and rather than looking for sponsors and pure sponsorship dollars because of the support of the city, we can focus on selling ticket packages. And the number one focus for us right now is filling that arena and coming out of this event with a pretty sizable profit. So rather than, likely having to replace that clock sometime in the next 4 or 5 years anyways, and trying to do it through naming rights or generating revenue some way, like we did when we first built the building, being able to take the revenues from this tournament and turn around and pay for an item like this, I think is optimal for all parties involved, the Bruins, the city. I know you've all seen the package that we sent out last week, some different opportunities for the city and for the Bruins to generate some excess revenue or extra revenue above and beyond what we've been doing with the current clock. I just think that it's good timing as far as something like this goes. So we just want to throw it out as an idea, and obviously it's the city's decision at the end of the day as to whether we go ahead with something like this as a legacy item from this tournament. We're very excited for the tournament itself, and I know a lot of you will probably be involved in helping out with the tournament at the end of the day. So basically just open things up to any questions you might have, I guess, at this point. I don't really have anything else to expand on beyond Danny did a great job in putting this package together for you guys. So between he and I, we'd try to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Corey, Danny, for the presentation. Questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Cernak.
So in the proposal, basically you're just asking for permission to purchase this clock and put it into Affinity, or what? I guess, what are we asking for totally?
Yeah, so it's a city-owned building. It's at the end of the day, it'll be a city-owned clock as part of that facility. So all we're proposing is, we had to put forward a legacy item as part of our proposal, and that's something that Hockey Canada finds important. So, this is something that we kind of felt was a win-win for the city and for the Bruins moving forward, putting this clock in using that money that we earmarked as a legacy fund moving forward. So yes, that the tournament would ultimately provide the cash for the clock, but we would like to, I don't know if it was in the proposal, but one of the reasons we're here is as early as we are in this process is ultimately we would love to see that clock in there for the start of this season and just drum up more excitement among the fan base and the community itself for that tournament and for being in that building for Bruins games and for anything. So if we can get the decision made soon, in the next week or two, we can contact the supplier. They can get us in the chain of their processing chain. And right now with the technology and chips being backlogged a little bit globally, it's a little bit more of a wait to get something like this put in. But they basically guaranteed that if we told them before, by the first week of July that we were going to go ahead with this project as a community, they could have it in place by third, fourth week of September. And, what would have to happen is the city would ultimately be buying the clock, and then the proceeds from the tournament would turn around and just reimburse, write you guys a check for it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cernak. Councillor Vroba.
What would the plan be if there was not the money left over after the tournament to pay for this clock? Because the clock is either going to be $222,000 or $265,000.
Yep. No, so we don't have a plan B because we are going to make that much money in this tournament. We're very confident that we're going to be able to sell. I've done some rough calculations just on the back end of the napkin even, I think it's 1,600 ticket packages at $150. If we even kept it that affordable, we're up around that $300,000 mark, or getting close to it. If we sold 2,000 tickets, it is 300,000. So, I think between Greg and I and the rest of the committee and putting some of the numbers together, we're pretty confident that we can make this kind of money. We've shown it with the Western Canada Cup. That's the kind of money that we had sitting around at the end of the day from that tournament. It was right around that $300,000 mark, I believe. And, we were able to build that legacy project after that tournament was completed, and still put the money towards the long-term debt with the city that the Bruins had outstanding from years and years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vroba. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Cernak.
Thank you, Marshall. Who would operate it? Because obviously, if nobody really understands this is not a score clock. This is a entertainment center system with all kinds of opportunities for sure. Mm-hmm. So I guess who would we look at to leave it in charge? Would it be Bruin game, city? So there's so many variables, I guess, or unknowns right now.
Yeah. I'll let Danny take that one. We talked about this earlier today and agreed that he would answer that question.
Yes. IKS Media, or DDG Group, they're based out of Regina, and they would help with the installation. They're the ones installing it, but they would also help with the implementation of all the equipment, along with the technology to operate the video screen and everything that involves with it. So whatever you call it, training sessions or however you want to put it, we would, at the time that we would purchase it, we would ask that the city and us, we'd work together, and maybe the Bruins especially, we would have likely myself or the person in my position plus 2 to 3 or 4 others kind of sit in and learn how to operate this equipment. And then we think it would also be beneficial for the city to have at least 1 or 2 people as well knowledgeable on how to work it, just for events or troubleshooting or anything along those lines as well. As far as that position goes, that's a decision, I guess, down the line. But as far as the Estevan Bruins perspective, it would be like our current score clock is. We would have a paid employee during the games or a volunteer of some kind to operate it. And that would be the initial plan for operating it. Now, the score clock itself, or the little miniature games or whatever, or rec hockey games, that it's not required for someone to know the whole system. It's as simple as the current system is for anyone operating it. So you wouldn't have to worry about having a professionally trained person operating it for every little event. It would be more for if you plan on using the full scale of it, then you would need someone who's got a little bit more knowledge. And again, IKS would provide that training basically for this first year especially, and then they'd be on call after that. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vroba. Then Councillor Ford.
You did answer most of my question there. I was just going to ask if the score clock was still going to be operated by the minor hockey, the midget AA, all the AA teams, the AAA team, that kind of thing. So your idea here is that it would be for everybody?
Yeah, so the video screen, the one that the new one that we're talking about here, could be accessible by anyone. They would have to have, if they want to use all the features, they'd have to have that full training, but it can just be used as a score clock with the score, the time, the penalties, and so on and so forth. And also included in the proposal here was a way that you could sell off the current score clock, recoup some of the cost, maybe put it on the east wall, and that video screen would still work as well over there. So, you'd still have lots of options that way.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't hinder the current experience or make it more complicated. It would just add a level for the Bruins games and possibly other games, whether that be the
And
AAA Bears or
So
something.
what would the harm be in waiting until after the Centennial Cup and creating legacy, like this be the legacy project? And then you could actually purchase the score clock with the funds that you raise.
Yeah, I don't think there's any major harm other than, being able to showcase the new clock for the rest of the country. An event like this where you have 4 teams coming in from all over the country and their fan base, other fans, just general hockey fans coming into our facility and being able to see it up over the ice for the tournament. And for us, the idea around having it in September is you run it for a season before that big event is here. You work out the kinks, you have it all set up and running properly. And then it is truly a showcase for that week or 10 days when the rest of the country's eyes are on us for that national tournament.
And in addition,
That was the main idea behind the timing of it.
And in addition, just the sponsorship that you could afford during the season this year as well. I know the city is renewing a lot of their naming rights right now for all that stuff, and this will kind of tie in time-wise that way. So the opportunity to sell sponsorship on it immediately, and we believe sell and make more revenue than you would with the current system.
Yes, and we actually are waiting, we're just going to get a report based on where we are with that sponsorship right now, but that's not ready for tonight, right? No, so, okay.
Okay, Jason, you had a comment?
Yeah, just to expand on possible events. After you have an event like the Centennial Cup, there's 2 other events for the CGHL. One being the World Junior A Challenge, which brings teams from US, Europe. It's a big event. There's another event, the CGHL Prospects, which brings the best players from the East and West. Those are 2 other events that we'd like to host at some point. And again, they have huge economic spin-offs for the community. So if we do have this clock during the Centennial Cup, it's just another way to showcase, hey, we want the World Junior A Challenge, or we want the CJHL Prospects game. And both those events bring in every scout for every NHL team into those events, plus colleges, major junior scouts. Those are really big events and very big economic makers for the community. So this is another way to say, look at how we hosted this, look at the, everything that we have in place for an event like this, and just really showcase yourself. So those are 2 other events that we really want to host down the road. So any extra advantage we can get, we'll try.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Councillor Ford, then Councillor Frank.
Thanks, Your Worship. In terms of logistics, does this new score clock, once it's installed, sit any lower or any differently? My concern with a bigger, newer score clock is that for concerts, people pay big money to sit in the bar and in the corners kind of thing in their boxes, and they pay a lot of money for those boxes. Is it going to obstruct anything for other events?
No, the size is very similar to our current one, as it's actually probably a little higher up or whatever, not as square, it's more rectangular in that sense, plus the hoist can be raised or lowered, and usually for hockey games it's I think it's quite a bit lower than it usually is for other events, so it wouldn't be a massive change in dimension from what we're currently at. I think if anything it would just be slightly wider, and again, offering a full 360-degree screen to all the angles. So.
Okay, and my next quick question is, I know there was a proposal to, for the city to gain extra revenue off the old score clock by selling it. Do you know of any cities that are looking to buy new score clocks, or is that something that's just, you're putting the onus on us to do, or?
No, so on that note, I talked with, again, the CEO there from IKS Media, Paul Drouin, about that. I guess they've already done that with some of the current ones that they've replaced, and essentially they would obviously work with the city, but they would be happy to act on the city's behalf in that sense, where they would offer, they would say that they have these panels for sale, so to speak, working with the city on that sense. So they would be the ones that more or less to try to sell them, and then again, working with the city on cost recovery. I think he quoted to me that because they'll need a new motion, or they'll need a new controlling system, whoever buys a panel. So that's where IKS would get part of the funds, and then they would, the city would receive the funds for the actual clock and panels. So it wouldn't be just left in the corner for the city to deal with on their time. It would be something that would be a focus selling point from IKS Media's point. And happy to work with the city and them as well to help get that done.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ford. Councillor Frank, are you done? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Clark.
Thanks. Thank you, Your Worship. I guess one of our, I think our shortfalls probably at the city is that we're not marking people. Like so we're fine if people come to us and say they want to do a box or whatever, but do you know if there are people out there that would be willing to pay the rates for the clock? Certainly it sometimes would be better for us if we had the names up front that said, look, if we do the new clock, are there people that would step up right away and say, yes, we want to be that sponsor? And that we could use their, to go out there and say, look, are you prepared to sign up for these rates for the next 5 years to take some of the onus off us? Or is it kind of going to be on the city to go and do the sponsorship for the new clock?
Yeah. As far as some of the static, or that's what I call them, ads that you would see, so the ones that would be up outside of Bruins games that you could see anytime. Obviously, those are the ones that the city of Estevan sells for revenue currently, and would work on renewing or expanding that sponsorship. So as far as we haven't approached any local sponsors with this new score clock idea, obviously we've kept it under wraps until tonight, basically, to come to the city first with tying it in with the Centennial Cup Legacy Project idea, and in hopes of making it essentially, from that sense, a no-cost purchase, or however you want to phrase it, by using the funds generated from the tournament for that. And where you would get your revenue after the fact would be the cities selling their sponsorship packages like they currently do for the current score clock to those businesses that see the revenue, see the value in its exposure. And that's something that is a lot more flexible, and your creative control is a lot better with this new score clock than currently, where you put something up there and it pretty much stays that way for 5 years.
Yeah, I think the whole idea here is that rather than the city try to sell let's say a 10-year sponsorship on the existing clock in hopes of raising enough money over the next 10 years to buy a new clock, this would pay for it through this event. We'd have the clock, it'd be up there, wouldn't be quite as urgent a task to get out there and sell the sponsorship now for the city. If you did, great, you sell the sponsorship and now it's money in the bank rather than money, maybe it's putting money in the bank for the next clock 10 or 15 years down the road, rather than having to worry about the one that we might have to put up in the next 2 or 3 years. So that was kind of the emphasis behind our proposal anyway.
Okay, Councillor Vroba, boy, you're really active tonight.
I was just thinking if we could maybe table this item until we can look into the report that we asked for this afternoon regarding where we're at already with our sponsorship. Maybe give us a chance, and maybe the Bruins can help us with that, and talk to a few people, a few past sponsors who might be interested in taking on that kind of a sponsorship on a brand new clock, and then we can better see where we're at. I think it's a great idea for the legacy for this Centennial Cup. Honestly, my biggest reservation is the pandemic. I have a concern that if something happens and things go south just before the tournament and it doesn't happen, then there is no revenue. And I know the city is already committed the $150,000 towards making sure the Centennial Cup happens, which I am a huge supporter of and will be willing to help in any way I can. I just have reservations in spending $250,000 before we actually make it.
Yeah, that's totally understandable.
So that would be my recommendation, that we table it until,
Okay, are you making that motion?
if I can, yeah.
Okay. Have we got a seconder to table a motion until more information comes our way? Councillor Cernick? Okay, any other questions or comments? I think this is a good opportunity, and usually when we have a big event like this, it's looked at as an opportunity, and here we have a need. We all know as technology changes every 2-3 years that it's not unrealistic to expect that probably within a few years we'll have to put some updates in the clock anyway. So here's an opportunity to, look at it in that light, which is good. And the other positive thing, the fact that we have Affinity Place paid for this year, that's huge. Cheers to council and everything else for arriving at that point as well. Okay, no more comments. All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you, gentlemen and lady, for coming tonight. And we will keep in touch.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
And Greg, I've never seen you come to council and not say anything. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, moving forward, written reports of committees. We have the Souris Valley Museum minutes of May 26th. Could we have a motion, please, to adopt those? Thank you. Councillor Walliser, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any questions or comments on those minutes? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under written reports of committees, we have the Creighton Lodge minutes of March 18th, 2021. Could we have a motion, please, to adopt those minutes? Thank you. Councillor Frank, seconder. Councillor Vroba. Any further questions? Councillor Vroba, any comments? You must have some.
No, it's actually Councillor Walliser is the representative.
Councillor Walliser, everything's going good over there?
Going wonderfully, yes.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Great. Okay, executive reports. We have from the city manager, the GLF extension clause. So they've been doing a very good job for us, and we have the opportunity to have a 2-year extension. City manager, would you like to speak to this at all?
Yeah, the report should have most of the information in it. There was one comment from council about if we had any issues, and one item was the brown bins locally in town. As you can see in the report, we have discussed with them, we're going to update the frequency of the dumps on some of those very high traffic bins and look at a cleaning and washing policy for some of those ones that stay out in a long time, especially the ones near parks with dog remains in them and stuff. So yeah, the report has everything in it. If there's any questions, feel free to ask them, and I know Rod's on here as well that we can answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. So the service provided by GFL has been in line with required by the contract, and administration recommends the GFL contract be extended for 2 years to June 30th, 2023. What's the wish of council? Councillor Frank.
Thanks, Your Worship. I did, the one comment I thought I'd just make too was just knowing a little bit of background on the industry. I think when we signed this contract, the rate we got was market dictated a pretty low price, which is great. I don't know that we would get a lower price. Obviously, we wouldn't know unless we tendered, but I feel pretty confident that this is the best rate we would get, so I'm pretty confident in agreeing to that. The one question I just had for City Manager, and I apologize, I probably should have sent this to you earlier because I'm going to put you on the spot now, was just, I know in past years we've talked a little bit about compost, and I've had a lot of people asking me again in the last few months just about compost in the city. Obviously, we want something that's optional, not quite the same as what we had to do with recycling and things like that, but just an option for people who are trying to be a little bit environmentally friendly, who have large bags of grass or other compostable items and would like somewhere to take it or for it to go. And I don't know if that conversation, I know we've had a few conversations with GFL, but I just would hope that that can continue to find a way that we can do that. So.
Sure, if you like, Councillor Frank, we can pursue that with GFL, find out what that would cost, not forcing everybody to be a part of it, but for those people that would like to be a part of it,
Yeah.
we could get a price and start moving that forward.
I know two options that had been considered. One would be just an optional cart, whether it's something people would pay for to have at their house, or if that's not feasible, the other would be having a compost bin at our recycling depot where people could maybe take stuff to. I don't know if that would be as feasible or as liked by the community, but it might be a great place to start and move some in that direction some way. So.
Okay, at least we can start that investigation. Okay, city manager, and then we'll go to Councillor Vroba.
Yeah, we have talked to them a couple times. We usually consider putting I guess it'd be the compost bins at the recycling depot on 6th Street, or even in each quarter of the city, usually during Operation Clean Sweep, to see how many people utilize something like that instead of taking them out to the landfill. It didn't happen for this spring, but I will talk to our rep and make sure that we have something for the fall Operation Clean Sweep and see how many people use it.
Okay, thank you for that, city manager. Councillor Vroba.
Thank you, Worship. That's what I was just going to say. The city that my mom lives in, they actually have them in the back alleys. And I know we don't have anything in our back alleys anymore, but exactly what the city manager said is kind of the same thing, where it would be great to be able to take your grass and dump it somewhere versus filling up the bin and waiting until it's pickup day. So yeah, I think it would be great to at least look into the cost of it and maybe even starting it with the smaller projects, pilot projects, and just seeing if people would utilize it.
Good. And
Good
your
idea.
mother's from Thompson, right?
We were from Thompson, but we made the trek up south, and my mom and dad were retired in Brandon, so it's Brandon that does it.
Okay, and you were never so happy to leave Thompson and come to Estevan, the happiest day of your life,
It
right?
was. I came here when I was 16, so.
Okay, do we have a motion then for acceptance? Thank you, Councillor Frank. Thank you, Councillor Welleser. Any further questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under executive reports, we have from the city treasurer, appropriate reserves utility report. City treasurer, would you like to speak to that? I guess I can read this off if you like, and then you can answer any questions. Currently, the city of Estevan has an amount of $287,260 stated in their financial statements as appropriated reserves / utility. Typically, reserves are set aside for future capital projects or to help for operating costs. This money has been on the books since 2013. MNP, our city auditors, believe it was related to water and sewer equipment. MNP is advising us to close out this reserve. MNP believes it was funds that were spent on a project in the past, but the reserve was never closed out. Conclusion: this amount is no longer valid, being labeled as appropriated reserve. I wish I had some appropriated reserves. Since these funds are internally restricted versus externally restricted, Council has the ability to make a motion to close out this reserve. The recommendation then, that Council make a motion to transfer this amount from the utility reserve to unrestricted surplus. And Trudy, City Treasurer, anything to add?
I think that pretty well covers it all, so if anyone has any questions, feel free.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Cernick, then Councillor Frank.
A quick one, can you just define unrestricted surplus? Like what is it?
So usually we'll just have a surplus left after we're done the books, and it's not, the money is just sitting there. It's not like you guys made a decision and said, we want to allocate that money to the Centennial Cup or to small services or to buy something. So you'll restrict it for its use instead of just leaving it there for unrestricted use.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cernick, and that would just about pay for the clock, wouldn't it?
I was just about
We always have so much need at the end of the year. Councillor Frank.
Well, the clock seems nice. I don't think I'll quite go that far yet. However, that actually leads to I actually personally would prefer to see us put it to, believe it or not, a restricted fund. I would like for us to kind of pick a project for it to go to. And I just say that because when we put it to an unrestricted reserve, what the community hears is that we're just going to put it into the city's bank account and it'll just sort of go somewhere. This sort of becoming bonus money, this could go towards some extra sidewalks or some extra something, and I think that would be a great way for us to make use of this money and make sure that the community knows that it's going somewhere right away. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Frank. We can sit on that and think about that for a while. City Treasurer.
I thought that this would happen, Travis, but what it is that these funds were already spent. They were just never actually moved. So I'm sorry to get your hopes up, but it was just never closed out.
I can't buy that clock
No,
then.
we're just asking permission to move it to a different part in the financial.
Forget what I said, City. I thought I had a bonus $280,000 and I was not going to let you have it. I was going to put it to sidewalks, but.
Look at that, you just.
You ruined my night, Trudy.
You burst
ruined
Councillor
it.
Frank's bubble.
Oh.
Anyway, City Manager, you had a comment.
Yeah, just to expand on that, this is a non-cash reserve. We don't have a bank account with this amount of money. It's the way the accounting reserve is set up. So even in a year, we can show a surplus of $5 million because it doesn't take debt and capital purchases into that final number of unrestricted surplus that gets banked there. So we do not have a bank account for this. It's an accounting term. It would have been set aside for a certain project at one time for accounting purposes only, not cash budgeting. So it's something that the auditors, we did a trail back till, like you said, to 2013, 2012, and there was no identification of it. So it's not like we have these funds sitting there. The only restricted funds we have right now currently are the gas tax funds in the separate bank account, and that would be for the water tower project.
Okay, thank you, City Manager, and thank you, City Treasurer. Both of you accountants, now we know why the accountants run the world. Okay, so we have, go ahead, Councillor Frank.
Well, in that case, then I will just make the recommendation that we do what the accountants would like. That we go ahead with the recommendation presented by the City Treasurer, as it's not free money, so I'm not too worried about it.
Okay, thank you for that. Have we got a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Welleser. Any further questions? If not, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Next, under executive reports from Leisure Services, we have the Commemorative Recognition Policy. Now, I guess I can go over this. It's quite a long report. And this is associated with our benches that came from last meeting. So I know we've all had the opportunity. This came from North Battleford. Commemorative Recognition Program in the City of Estevan Parks. Open spaces, facilities shall be designed and placed to help enrich location experience while respecting the environment, maintenance considerations, and broader community interest. All requests for commemorations received by the City of Estevan will be reviewed and approved in accordance with the criteria and process established by this policy. So tangible commemorations are physical markers in the landscape. Public commemorations are those that are either publicly funded and implemented or privately initiated and funded but are placed in public spaces. Commemorations in the City of Estevan can be figurative statues, monuments, cairns, fountains, artifacts, dedication bench, dedication tree, banners, unnamed access roads, pathways, and interior memorabilia or artifacts. Okay, so this will basically take over the City of Estevan Parks, open spaces, and facilities currently not covered under existing policies. So we have the commemoration, honoring of the memory of a person, figurative statue, resemblance possibly of a person, monument, usually incorporating classical elements to commemorate historic events, cairn, intentionally, carefully laid rock with a plaque, fountain. Fountains are normally found in urban squares and central parks. And of course, we might have an issue with a fountain when it's 45 below with the wind. Dedication, plaque, bench or tree, interior memorabilia, memorabilia that can be positioned inside a facility, pathway, all or a segment of the city's dedicated pedestrian corridor, corridor within the city's parks and open spaces, dedication banners, commemorative banners at designated locations. Nominator is someone who officially suggests that an individual, event, entity, idea, or site of significance and relevance to the city of Estevan should be considered for recognition. Nominee, an individual, event, idea, or site that is formally proposed as being the recipient of honor. So the main objectives is to facilitate the commemoration of individuals, entities, events, ideas, or sites that are of significant interest and relevant to the city. To recognize on an exceptional basis significant contributions that organizations or individuals have made to public life or the well-being of the city, facilitate the identification of sites for commemorations, to provide opportunities for public appreciation and understanding, to provide direction on how to apply for approval, to commemorate individuals, ideas, events, or sites that are significant, to provide for the fair and equitable treatment of all proposals, to install commemorations and monuments, to ensure the application of a defined consultation process, to encourage community participation, to ensure a clear, efficient, and timely approval process. So they must meet at least one of the following: a person who demonstrates excellence, courage, exceptional dedication to service to the community, a person who volunteers, gives extraordinary help or care to individuals, families, groups, or supports community services or humanitarian causes, a civilian or veteran who risked his or her life to protect others, a project to honor or reflect the heritage, cultural, social significance, ethnicity, there we go, or gender diversity of the community, individual, groups, or families through their achievements have brought recognition to the city. So for each proposal, the city's administration will determine the worthiness of the request and assess whether the subject for commemoration is relevant, and in this way determine the worthiness. Work with the nominator in identifying the most appropriate locations, taking into consideration the relationship between the commemoration and its location. Review the design of the commemoration and how it contributes to place. Decide whether a subject is worthy of commemoration, and then recommend this to City Council for approval. Projects are evaluated and approved based on the honoring of the memory of a person, event, entity, or idea that transpired within the city of Estevan. Any project that does not meet the criteria may be brought forward to council for consideration. And again, it's repetitive, but a person who demonstrates excellence, person who volunteers, a person who fosters equality, reduces discrimination, a person who risks her life, his or her life, to save or protect others, a person who achieves a deed or activity performed in an outstanding professional manner or of uncommonly high standard that brings considerable benefit to our municipality. So I don't want to go on and on ad nauseum. Nominators will be required to submit. You'll have to have supporting documentation. You'll have to have a timeline. It generally will be presented to council within 8 weeks. Location, city will work with the nominator. City will evaluate and identify sites. Consultation will take place with staff in the city and applicable third parties. The proposed commemoration project, including its location, may be available on the city's website, so then you can have feedback from our community. So acceptable projects, benches, tree dedications, figurative statues, fountains, dedication banner, pathway or pathway segments, recreation, cultural facilities, figurative statue, fountain dedication banner, bench and tree dedications, unnamed access roads, memorabilia, artifacts, that would be internally. So wow, this covers all the bases. So the nominator is also responsible for producing any engineer and design documents if needed. Nominator is responsible for the fabrication, development, construction. Where applicable, the city may monitor the construction. Once the commemoration is completed, the nominator generally offers the commemoration to the city, which accepts ownership. Then we become the custodian. Nominators are responsible for funding of their commemoration. All costs associated with are their responsibility as well. Life cycle management, the completed commemoration will be maintained as an asset of the City of Estevan. Regular annual maintenance includes cleaning, preventative maintenance, graffiti removal, and vandalism repair. Life cycle repair interventions could include minor repairs, component replacements, and relocation of a commemoration. Because of changing urban environments, the site may no longer be appropriate in time, and the city may determine that it might have to be relocated. In such cases, the city may seek to place the commemoration in a site of similar scale and visibility. Nominator recognition, the principal nominator for the project may be recognized by means of a specific plaque at the commemorative site or on a small plaque behind a bench. Donor contributions to the commemoration, whether financial or other, shall not be acknowledged in any manner as part of the site. Wow, I think we've gone over that pretty good. Then you've got the application form. So what's the wish of council? I think you had your hand up, Councillor Broba or Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to say that I did read this over, and I thought it was very well written. I thought just exactly what you said. It covered everything that we were kind of looking for. And so thank you, kudos to North Battleford, because why reinvent the wheel when it's already been written?
Exactly,
so,
and we thank Rod March for finding this in North Battleford, so much kudos to him.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a really well-written document.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, it certainly takes care of any concerns I raised in the previous debate, so I would make a motion that we accept this.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder, first of all? Thank you, Councillor Sarnik. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Walliser, Councillor Ford?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think this policy really addresses that gap that was identified. It focuses on clear, efficient, timely approval, but it also allows the community and individuals to be part of that collaborative process of creating something that really is meaningful to the city as a whole. And so I really do appreciate the new policy. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Good point. Councillor Ford.
Thanks so much, and thanks to Rod for finding this document. And it is, as everybody has said, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. My just one small concern is within this criteria, if pretend I say I have a family member who's passed or someone young who's passed in our community or something who maybe doesn't seem to fit this criteria, and it's obviously on a case-by-case basis, but if you're trying to do a memorial bench for anybody, it would be difficult sometimes just to be like, okay, this is why they contributed to the community. Maybe they were just great in your family or whatever. So and that sounds silly maybe the way I worded that, but it makes a person think that, holy smokes, the person that I want to dedicate this bench to had to be an extraordinary human being, but maybe it was just extraordinary to them, right?
Right, and I would suggest, Councillor Ford, because we do need so many benches, that if the request from the family was heartfelt, I'm sure the council of the day would approve.
Yeah, and absolutely, and I just noticed the wording on it. It would make a person maybe leery if they were hesitant to ask to begin with or to bring it up, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, well, you're right. It could be thought from this that unless you invent a rocket to the moon, you're probably not going to get a bench. But yeah, I don't think that has to be the case for sure. Oh, Rod? Okay, Rod, did you want to comment?
Yeah, Your Worship, I just wanted to address that by just saying that the option is always there for the nominee to come to council with, if they have any concerns like that, if they feel like that, you know, it might be too strenuous or whatever. So the options, they're still available if they do not fit the criteria to come forward with the nomination.
Okay, thank you, Rod. Any question? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Walliser.
I have one question about how this maybe dovetails or overlaps with our street naming policy. Do we care if people have both a street and a memorial site to them? Are these kind of viewed as separate issues? Particularly in regards to the pathway, I think there could be some confusion if we start naming streets and pathways with the same family name.
Yeah, good point, Councillor Walliser. Usually, the street, we haven't had any new streets lately, but usually it's someone like a MP or, you know, someone that's done a lot of service or a veteran. And then usually the pathway, the benches, not that they're less important, but usually that's the category, the difference that you have in the past anyway. Yeah. And now we've got good people who would have had streets named after them, but because we haven't had any streets lately, then we end up looking at a portion of a pathway or something like that, just so that their name gets out there. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Rod, for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, City Clerk, did I get a motion for that?
You got a motion, you just need to accept it.
Oh, okay, ready for the question? All in favor? Okay, thank you. Then we have the pro-life bench request. Now that will fall under this policy now, right, City Clerk?
Your Worship.
Councillor Broder.
Yeah, just to clarify, it wasn't a pro-life. I think that was the miscommunication. It's memorial benches.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. So did we have to address that, City Clerk? Yeah, that was tabled. So can we just have a motion that we'll go according to this new policy?
Yes, I think according to this new policy, and also, I think everything about the other bench was fine, except the fact that the heart and the two little feet are actually the pro-life emblem. So anything that I looked up online that was related to pro-life, that is actually how you designate or identify that it's pro-life. So I would like to make a recommendation that if the memorial benches that they have asked to have put in the park, at their cost, they're the ones paying for the bench, I believe the city should pay, because we did have someone in the city or management agreed to the fact that these could be produced. I think there was only 3 or 4 that have already been produced.
I think, yeah, 3 or 4.
3, yeah. So it would be roughly minimal cost. I believe we looked into it, and it was around $100 a bench to have that small hearts and feet just taken out, and just these always loved would be on the bench. And then I believe the small plaque, again, would probably be that it's in memory of the person that they're in memory of, or in honor of, because some of these people are still with us and they just want to have an honor bench. So again, I'm assuming that they would still have to fill in the application form as per this policy and then lay that out. But if there's a cost, I make a motion that the city absorbs the cost to have those heart and the 2 feet removed. And if they're not interested in having that removed, then I would say that wouldn't fall into our name.
That they would be placed in a private place.
Then that would be up to them, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that's your motion?
That would be my motion.
Have we got a seconder? Councillor Frank? Okay, ready for the question? Any further questions? If not, all in favor? Okay, carried. Okay, thank you. Next, moving on from HR, we have amendment to workplace violence, harassment, and discrimination. It's a very involved policy, which hopefully will check all the boxes. Do we have a motion to accept this policy for the City of Estevan? Thank you, Councillor Walliser. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Ford? Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next, we have the water quality report for May. And again, it looks like everything's going tickety-boo. Do we have a motion to accept the water quality report for May? Thank you, Councillor Clark. Seconded by? Thank you, Councillor Cernick. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Introduction of bylaws. We're not introducing any tonight. Public hearings and reports, we have none tonight. Giving notice, we have none tonight. Motions from committee, we have none this evening. So consideration of bylaws, we will now deal with the second and third reading of the bylaws that we gave first reading to last meeting. So could I have a motion, please, for bylaw 2021-2041, Property Tax Bylaw? We'll give this second and third readings. So I will ask for second reading, please. Thank you, Councillor Walliser, seconded by Councillor Frank. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Now I will ask for third reading and adoption for use of bylaw 2021-2041, Property Tax Bylaw. Councillor Frank? Seconded by Councillor Ford. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, I will ask for second reading of bylaw 2021-2042, Library Levy Bylaw. Second reading, please. Councillor Clark, seconded by. Thank you, Councillor Groba. And this is where I ask any questions or comments. Seeing none, everybody's nice and quiet tonight. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, I'll ask for third reading and adoption for use of bylaw 2021-2042, Library Levy Bylaw. I know this is quite onerous tonight, but thank you for cooperating. Councillor Groba, second by Councillor Walliser. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, we have bylaw 2021-2043, the bid levy bylaw. We will start with second reading, please. Thank you, Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Walliser. Any questions on this one? Councillor Frank.
Sorry, I actually just have a question on all 5 of them. Was there any, these have all been advertised, correct? Was there any, I'm assuming our city clerk would have chimed in, there was no comments on any of these, correct, tonight?
That's right.
These are pretty standard ones, but I just wanted to make sure we weren't skipping over that. So
Yeah,
as long as it wasn't.
The city clerk is very studious. She listens to her phone for any feeling of ill will or contention on these bylaws, and to this date she has heard none.
Perfect. I know these are pretty standard ones we do every year, so I didn't assume so, but I thought I better make sure that that was the case. So other than that, no worries.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so now we will go to bylaw 2021. Oh, I didn't get third reading? Okay, sorry. Thank you, City Clerk. I will ask for third reading of bylaw 2021-2043, the bid levy bylaw. Thank you, Councillor Groba. Seconded by Councillor Ford. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, bylaw 21-2044, regional healthcare levy. I will ask for second reading, please, at this time. Thank you, Councillor Groba, seconded by Councillor Frank. Any questions on this bylaw? If not, go ahead, Councillor Walliser.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to highlight that this is in fact the final year of the city's commitment to building the new regional nursing home.
Yeah, good news.
Just how exciting that is for the citizens of Estevan, particularly considering that the province has now allocated funds to begin the planning of the new nursing home.
Yes.
So a big thank you to the citizens for that donation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Walliser. That's a big milestone. Not only have we got that paid off, as I mentioned before, Affinity Place, which is very, very huge. Our $25 million building is now paid. So that's great. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Now I will ask for third reading of Bylaw 2021-2044, Regional Healthcare Levy. Third reading and adoption for use. Thank you. Councillor Walliser, Councillor Clark. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Last but not least, under consideration of bylaws, we have Bylaw 2021-2045, Fee for Service Bylaw. Second reading, please. Do we have a motion for second reading? Thank you, Councillor Frank. You've been doing yeoman's work tonight. I appreciate that. And Councillor Broba. Any questions? If not, go ahead, Councillor Walliser. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is to Aaron Wilson, just in regards to the city-wide registration tables. I've had a few discussions with third-party groups as well as some of the committees that I sit on. And what groups have raised as a concern is that year after year, they're seeing increases in the cost to attend citywide. And at the same time, more and more groups are using online platforms to register children and athletes in their programming, to the point that we may be losing kind of that social value of citywide, that the cost is now moving into the grounds where it could be cost prohibitive, and that we're actually going to lose participants. And not so much that groups didn't want to be there. They really appreciate the exposure that citywide provides and the ability to meet like-minded groups, but just looking for some understanding on why a table at citywide is $95, but they could actually rent the multi-purpose room for $55 instead.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Walliser. And Aaron, thank you for being with us tonight. That shows a lot of dedication, girl. You've been quietly waiting all night. So thank you for that. Did you want to answer the question, please?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where the concerns are, because that's always an option. We provide this as a service for any of the user groups who would like to take advantage of that, but by all means, it's not something that is needed, and so I guess if it doesn't fit into their budget, then that, you know, we've provided tables or different options if they wanted to book the facility. A good example is the Cross. It doesn't often fit into their time zone, so they have come and used the facility separately. The other option is if they can't afford that full fee, but they just want to get their name out there, then we do discount the rate. So they sort of pay for what services that they're asking to, or that they're actually using. Without a specific example, I'm not exactly sure how to answer that.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Well, you gave it a good try. Councillor Walliser, did you have any question on that?
If you can just explain what services a group would provide when they're coming to citywide. Do they receive advertising? Is it just a table in a room? What are we offering those groups?
Yeah, so we do set up the tables and the chairs for each of the groups. I think the biggest piece is the advertising itself. So between myself and Becky, we're collecting the information that they're choosing to place into the promotion. The promotion goes to all the schools, ideally in the backpacks of the families, or emailed out through the school process. And then the city page accesses as well. So we put the promotion on there, social media sites, the information desk has all the information in case anybody does call. So, you know, that's really what they're getting for under $100. And we know how much that kind of advertising would cost. So that was just a service we tried to help provide to ideally make it affordable for these groups.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Does that address your question, Councillor Walliser?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vroba, you had your hand up?
I was actually just going to highlight the fact that they do get advertising amongst it, plus they get the fact that sometimes when you're in that small area, and I know as a parent, I've been to those citywide registrations where I've seen a table set up And then my son is like, Mom, I want to do that. So then he gets registered for 2 events versus the one I came for. So they do get a little bit of exposure maybe, and that's maybe what we need to do is explain to people better when we get those kind of concerns as to what they do get. Because I guess exactly what Aaron said, they could rent the multipurpose room and do it by themselves, but then they're going to be in charge for all the advertising, the table setups and et cetera. So,
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
They do usually get pretty good exposure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So for second reading, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Now, last but not least, Bylaw 2021-2045, Fee for Service Bylaw, third reading and adoption for use. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Thank you, Councillor Ford. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we will move to inquiries. Councillor Groba.
thank you, Your Worship. I actually did have an inquiry, and it was regarding the construction on 4th Street. I think it probably feels to people that they've been there forever. One of the comments was they've actually set up a shack and it seems like they're just going to stay there. But I think what people don't realize is it's a very intense project there. And they actually set up on May 25th and the projected date to be there is 6 weeks. So it might feel like they've been there forever, but they're just started. So they are going to be, based on what we know, May 25th is when they set up, 6 weeks, and then paving should start July 5th, and it will go till July 23rd. So I guess the question I had is July 23rd for the entire area, for all of 4th Street, right up until Kensington?
From Kensington to Souris?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Because once they start the paving, I don't think that's going to take too long.
Excellent.
Is
Good
that
to know.
right, City Manager?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, to Councilor Rowe. Well, I believe that is, but I did get the same concern earlier today. So I do have Shane, the water treatment plant, and Kafloon, the engineer, putting a project proposal together. I know there has been some things identified, lines in the ground today that weren't identified by locates. So we don't know if it's an old line, but you still have to wait for SaskTel access to come take a look at those lines. So there could be some periods where it looks like there's delays, but we're waiting on some of the utility companies. It is a substantial project, but we will be providing a report to council. So hopefully, if there is any more questions, council's up to date on exactly what's happening.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. Anything else, Councillor Groba?
No, tonight I only had one thing, and I'm done.
Wow, good girl. You're doing good today. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just have a question on, we had 3 valves that we were changing out, if that got completed, and there was also a break on Perkins Street that was right near another break, and I'm wondering if are we having a bigger problem there, or was it just something that didn't go right? I wonder if you could update me on those 2 projects.
I believe, and City Manager can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the one on Perkins was unfortunate because they tied onto the line. The line wasn't in good enough shape. It looked good, but it couldn't withstand once they started putting the pressure. So now they went back all the way to the next connection. So now it should be good, right, City Manager?
Fairly close, Mayor. So where we had done the break before wasn't where it broke this time. So there was an old section line done in the early 90s where a whole large section, I believe they said 10 to 14 meters, was put in with a different type of material than the rest of the line. So when we repaired the one part, the break this time was fine, but 4 meters down in this old pipe area, there was another break. So you'll see that we dug that hole bigger. We took out all the old piece of line and made sure that the whole line now is the same material. So unfortunately, it's something that was done, prior in the 80s and 90s that was done to save costs probably because we had some facilities, and now we're dealing with the issues and making sure that we're fixing them right as we go this time. In regards to the valves on 4th Street, I believe that's happening in the next few nights. I know I can get water treatment manager Shane to do a report on that as well. There was a 14-inch valve that was a special size ordered. We tried to get one out of Washington. They said they had shipped it, and then they said that no, they couldn't find that piece. So we do have one on order. So 2 valves will be done right away. A 3rd valve will be done subsequent to that, probably in a month. So I'm going to get a whole report on that. I'll include that in the 4th Street report for council so they're aware of the situation.
Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. And I think they're going to do those valve replacements at night, so it's the least disruption. Okay, Councillor Walliser.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight, okay. Councillor Ford?
Nothing tonight, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Cernick?
Thank you, Worship. I just had an inquiry into, obviously, the truck route for Perkins Street, since we were talking about Perkins Street. The person obviously realizes that Perkins almost has to be used, but they're just wondering if there was any way to slow the traffic down at all. So.
Okay, well, good comment. What we can do is, put those radar signs up to make the people cognizant of their speed. And we could also, through the police board, have the police monitor and give tickets where necessary. Would you like us to do that? We can forward that to the police board.
Yeah, or even is there something where maybe heavy traffic is held to 30 kilometers down that road? Something along that lines, or is that a...
Well, I tell you what we can do is discuss that at the police board and get their feedback. Absolutely. Okay, no problem. Councillor Frank, I've been good tonight. I haven't made
You haven't messed it up once, Your Worship. I'm very impressed. Tonight I have all of Shelley's inquiries, so I'm going to take all the time.
Okay.
The first one I had was just, I had some, it came from a couple people, but it's just the amount of semi-traffic coming through the community. And obviously, there's always circumstances where semis have to come into town to make deliveries here, something we want to see happen. But just pointing out that there's an excessive amount and clearly a lot that are not taking the bypass and instead coming through town. So just something to pass along to the police board to keep an eye on, to try to make sure that if they're not needing to be through town, that they shouldn't be coming through town unless they're needing to make a stop or anything like that. So
okay, thank you.
That was one that I just wanted to bring up. And then the other one, and this is not an immediate action item, but it's something I'd like to put forward with this wonderful bypass through road construction, which is always a good thing. Let's remember, road construction is a good thing. It's hard to remember that some days, but this has certainly highlighted a big sore spot in our community that we've all known has been a bad thing for a long time, which is the 5th Street from Souris Avenue all the way down to 2nd Avenue. That street, there's almost nothing left of it. It's in quite bad repair. So what I'd like to ask is that our management team put together what that actually looks like to repair. I think the last time it's even been just tossed around that there's probably some undergrounds that need to be replaced. It's probably a substantial project. But I think it's something that we need to start looking at getting prices on and figuring out when it fits into our timeline as a city, because there's very little left of what was a street there from that whole stretch. So.
Okay, good point. Thank you. Councillor Vroba, I don't usually give seconds for inquiries, but for you, I'll make it exception.
Thank you. I just wanted to just comment on both of the traffic inquiries because I live in the Hillcrest area. And so, yes, I agree on Perkins. Sometimes some pretty heavy traffic's billowing down there about 50, sometimes it seems like 60, because they're so big. And so at least on Perkins, we have some stoplights that will actually stop them. But on 5th Street, the beauty of those rough areas is it slows them down.
Good point.
So we just have to keep that in mind, that if we're gonna go ahead and fix that entire road, it now becomes a Wellick Road. So, and I know there's not a lot of maybe schools or playgrounds or anything in that area, but the nice thing about it is, because I take 5th Street even when 4th Street's open, and you just got to do your 40 to 50.
Good point. Thank you.
That's a very appreciated comment, and obviously something that we would want to put into that proposal. Maybe it's stop signs or street. I don't know what that looks like, but I think that's a good point.
Yeah,
actually, you're right, because I don't want to repave the thing and have it become a big speedway, because that's what it's going to be. So that's a really good point. We'd have to make sure that's
our
considered.
way of saving on speed bumps.
Yes,
exactly. Okay, thank you both for that. City Manager.
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. City Treasurer?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. City Clerk?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Okay, everyone's quiet. What about you, James? Did you want to say anything today? No, not today. Okay, well, could we have a motion then, please, to move into committee? Thank you. Councillor Vroba. Seconded by Councillor Ford, sorry. All in favor? Carried. We stand adjourned. Good evening, everyone, and thank you.